I wanted to make another post talking about the usage of some words, specifically anarchy and libertarianism. Anarchy means without a ruler or a chief, or without rulership. That's basically what it means. And it doesn't really reflect any position I hold, or I think anybody sane holds, except for certain leftist anarchists and so forth. Because something like liberal market systems or so-called market anarchy is not market anarchy or anarcho-capitalism. It's marketarchy. It's rule by certain methods of acquisition. The system of property is authoritarian. It's an archy. There is a ruler of property. There is a system of hierarchy who gets to decide what to do in a certain situation with certain resources. And it's not anarchistic. It's not anarchy. There's not a lack of a ruler. In fact, if anything, compared to democratic states, there's a much more clearly delineated ruler and owner and commander in a proprietarian liberal society. And it's governed by market processes and certain rules of acquisition. So there's just absolutely no etymological defense for the term anarchy. There are certain historical connotations that might reflect some of what a proprietarian liberal would believe, but at the same time these are also usually associated with wacky anti-property, anti-authority, leftist groups, egalitarians, and so forth, who are just silly. I mean, even the actual anarchists like Bakunin undermined the use of the term because they accepted authority and so forth. So it's really no point for the term anarchy, and it doesn't imply anything that resembles liberal proprietarian norms. Okay, now libertarianism. Originally, the term libertarian has to do with an idea of free will versus predestination, and there may be some historical connection, but as far as its relationship to political philosophy, that's long irrelevant. Okay, so libertarians classically were more or less anti-statist anarchist types. It doesn't imply a liberal sort of standard as it does in the United States. In history and various other parts of the world, it could apply to individualists, it could apply to socialists of different stripes, it could apply to criminals. I mean, there are a number of ideologies that fall under the name libertarian. And I also think that etymologically, linguistically, the term doesn't really reflect markets either. When you have a system of proprietarian norms and contracts and certain rules of torts, these are not systems that tell you what you can do. These are systems that say you cannot do this, you cannot do that, you can't. It's not that it says a person can do whatever he wants with his own property. It's that nobody can interfere with your property, so what you do with it is kind of beside the point. The point is that nobody else can interrupt your liberties. So you could just as well call something like Marxism, when in the final communist stage the state withers away and there's no property boundaries on people. That could be called libertarianism just as well as a sort of market anarchist theory could. So I don't really find the term libertarian useful. I understand it's very widely used, but I think linguistically and philosophically it's not really helpful. The question would be, what are you going to call yourself? Well, I think to an extent anti-statist is reasonable, although it doesn't entail a whole lot. It just means you're opposed to certain state forms of government. I've heard people use terms like emergentist. I don't really know if I would support that, even philosophically, because I think a kind of Burkean, Hayekian notion of spontaneous order is either meaningless or irrelevant, and every government is a spontaneous order. So, I would just say I'm a propertarian liberal, and that can be confusing in some senses that there are different branches of liberalism, but I think there's a lot more to be gleaned from both of those historically and etymologically than you would get out of either libertarianism or anarchism. And if it will confuse certain people, but everything will. People have no idea what a propertarian sort of customary society is. And that's pretty much it.